Good morning. Welcome to the Franz Edelman competition. My name is Ann Robinson, and I'm the chair of this year's competition. I ask you now to shut off your phones and minimize all noise as this session is being recorded. Each competitor has 40 minutes to present their work, as well as 10 minutes of questions from the judges. And with that, please join me in welcoming the third finalist, Holiday Retirement and Prorize.
Good morning. I'm Scott Schanneberger, Chief Operating Officer of Holiday Retirement, the second largest senior living provider in the United States. We have more than 300 communities and approximately $1 billion in annual revenue. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank Informs for organizing and hosting the Franz Edelman Award, which celebrates and commemorates the achievements and best practices in the field of operations research. I'd also like to congratulate the other finalists in the competition. We are honored to be sharing the stage with all of you. When we started our journey to transform the way Holiday would approach one of our most complex problems, our pricing, we were fortunate to partner with Prorize, a team with a proven track record of helping companies with complex business environments set prices and optimize revenue. Prorize brought the discipline of OR to Holiday and dramatically changed our business in ways that have truly impacted our employees, our customers, our communities, and our shareholders. I'm delighted to be joined by Amit Kanyumju, co-founder and CEO of Prorize. Today, we are pleased to share the results of our work, the Senior Living Rent Optimizer, or SLRO. The SLRO is truly state-of-the-art revenue management system based on innovative pricing science modules and processes. To our knowledge, it's the first major OR application in the senior living industry. The SLRO enables a consistent, proactive pricing process across Holiday, while simultaneously providing optimal pricing recommendations for each apartment unit in every one of our communities. The SLRO gives Holiday control over our corporate pricing process, eliminates inventory devaluation, and maximizes long-term revenue. Furthermore, the system is a cultural difference maker. It has raised Holiday's organizational pricing IQ and given our salespeople the confidence that the listed price is the right price. The results have been extraordinary. Since Holiday rolled out the SLRO to all our properties in August 2014, we have realized $88 million in same-store revenue and observed occupancy gains. By comparison, during the same period, public companies in the senior housing space reported levels of revenue and occupancy that were generally flat. Over the next 3 years, we estimate an additional revenue of benefit of $218 million. Beyond the revenue, the SLRO has advanced a value-based culture at Holiday. For the first time, operations research brought revenue management techniques commonly practiced in other industries to the senior living industry, and did so with great success. And the solution has been applied to another industry, self-storage. We're pleased to have Matthew Marin with CubeSmart, a provider of self-storage facilities, join us later to share his experiences. Due to the baby boomer generation, the U.S. is experiencing a looming gray wave. By 2030, 71 million people in the U.S. will be 65 and older. That is 1 in 5 people. The old age dependency ratio, the number of people aged 65 and older per 100 working age people, 15 to 64 years old, will nearly double by 2050. This accelerated rise of the aging population is fueling the dramatic growth of a multi-billion-dollar industry focused on building, owning, operating, buying, and selling senior living facilities. These facilities fill a key chasm between living at home and being in a hospital. The senior living industry is growing rapidly. It reached $315 billion in 2015 and shows no sign of slowing down. Senior living communities range from independent living and assisted living to nursing homes. They provide housing, along with wellness programs that include dining, room services, basic healthcare services, community environments, social activities, and support networks. For senior living communities to succeed, they must be run efficiently and supported by a profitable business model. To accomplish this, there is no process more foundational than than the way an operator makes pricing decisions. However, the pricing process of most senior living firms is archaic at best. It's inconsistent, manual, and reactive. These practices create situations where the local sales teams have frequent requests for exceptions, leading to substantial efforts to negotiate prices. First between local and corporate staff, and then between local salespeople and residents. But this reduces the positive anticipation of choosing a well-suited home to a process that feels like buying a used car. Our company touts the holiday touch, which we'd like to share with you now.
Founded in 1971, Holiday Retirement is the second largest operator of senior living communities in the United States. With more than 300 communities across the United States, Holiday serves thousands of seniors who enjoy a one-of-a-kind lifestyle that only Holiday can provide. Holiday is unique in that it provides residents an affordable and practical option to pay for an all-inclusive lifestyle. The monthly fee includes rent, utilities, 3 chef-prepared meals a day, transportation, housekeeping, maintenance, a portable emergency response system available 24/7, and 7 days of activities and events. Holiday, our mission is to provide security, comfort, and value to seniors seeking an active and fulfilling lifestyle.
Operating senior living communities that number in the triple digits offers its own set of complexities and challenges. Unlike traditional apartments, senior living community residents sign month-to-month leases. Residents pay an upfront community fee and then agree on a unit and monthly rent. Our 300 communities equate to roughly 40,000 apartments in 43 states. The sales staff is approximately 350 all around the country in 300 different locations, operating almost independently. Without a central location for sales staff, they couldn't work collaboratively and were only focused on renting apartments to raise occupancy in their own community, not to provide a preferred housing option for seniors. At Holiday, our pricing process was old school. It was done manually during the annual budgeting process and simply handed down to the local salespeople with significant allowances for negotiation and incentives. This once-a-year activity resulted in 11% gaps between the asking prices for apartments and actual prices. Furthermore, customer price sensitivities and move-in forecasts were not used. Rather, knee-jerk decisions were made to reconcile good months with lots of move-ins with bad months, where additional discounts and incentives were used. With 40,000 apartments, there are a variety of amenities, unit size, location, such as being close to the dining area and view. These unique amenities by unit were not considered in our pricing models. Thus, 2 very different units of the same type could be equally priced. Finding a senior living option for an aging loved one is an emotionally charged experience, especially if the loved one is not interested in moving. Spur-of-the-moment negotiations and pricing adjustments made the process of choosing a well-suited home for mom or dad feel very stressful. Senior living is fundamentally a care business. If your doctor starts the conversation with pricing, he would have a certain opinion about that. We needed to shift the conversation from the price seniors are seeking to value our communities, to value communities provide. You can only do this when you have the right price. Several members of our executive team come from the hospitality industry and were familiar with revenue management and how it was applied successfully in other industries. We wanted to see if these concepts could apply to our unique needs and deliver best pricing for our residents and their families, and stay profitable so that we can continue to provide services that our residents enjoy and value most. With that, I'll turn it over to Amit to talk about the journey and the SLRO solution. Amit.
Thank you, Scott. When we were presented with Holiday's challenges, we were extremely thrilled. There were many obstacles and a lot of things to sort out. Our efforts included business analysis, cleansing, validating, and analyzing data, establishing benefits, implementing an automated enterprise software solution, and managing change. We carefully designed a work plan with 3 major phases. Some are executed in parallel. I'm proud to say that we ended up with a very effective revenue management system. The goal in this phase was to prove RM can successfully be applied to the senior living industry. The first key task was to design a pricing data mart as a foundation for analysis and modeling. We then performed exploratory data analysis and identified many opportunities to use revenue management science. For example, we found that there was a wide range of moving rents in the historical data. This enabled us to measure response to price changes. We also found that demand is highly seasonal and could be estimated. Unit amenities were not taken into consideration, and we knew that could certainly add a lot of value to the sales process. This analysis guided us to build a prototype revenue management for the industry. Phase 1 also focused on an ROI analysis, estimating revenue lift of 3 to 7% by an offline demand arrival process. We first rolled back a year. Each month was then intentionally withheld from the model at the time of pricing, and revenues were estimated 1 month at a time. To ensure that we do not overestimate revenue, we did not allow optimum rates to deviate from the actuals significantly. The model were more relaxed when we implemented the solution in later phases. Since phase 1 was entirely offline, we needed to prove that the rents generated by the system could, in fact, deliver value to Holiday. This took us to phase 2. Over 2 years, we executed live pricing experiments using our prototype revenue management system. Just like what is done for clinical trials, we measure system performance, comparing the results from a set of pilot properties that use revenue management system with results from control properties that did not use the revenue management system. We designed the pricing experiment after carefully selecting pilot control pairs across 280 properties, which were loaded into our database with some good history. The pair selection for the pilot was done a priori, where each pair was scored based on their attributes, such as distance, unit capacity, average rent, occupancy, demand pattern, demographics, unit mix, number of competing communities. The highest scoring pairs were identified and reviewed to ensure that there were no business issues that might bias the results. From each pair, the pilot was randomly selected. Holiday ensured that neither the pilot nor control property management were aware that they were being compared. The results were indisputable. The average revenue lift was above 9%, ranging from 4 to 16%. We had an over 9% revenue lift. However, this did not mean that we will get all of the revenue left in year one, since we price new leases only. With residential turnover at 36% annually, we estimated a total revenue lift of $302 million for 5 years after full deployment. The revenue lift is normalized for any revenue growth due to inflation or other rate adjustments. These revenue lift results were incredible and provided a clear business case for deploying across the company. We initially rolled out 280 communities in August of 2014 and added the remaining 20 plus communities a year later. In the final phase of the project, Prorize was tasked with automating the entire revenue management and rent optimization process from end to end, an effort that effectively created the state-of-the-art revenue management system, the SLRO, for the senior living industry. Let's discuss the revenue management approach using the definition of revenue management I like most. The first piece is the data. It is disciplined and it is data-driven. That means we better have the data right. The user judgments may, of course, influence the outcome, but only after seeing what the revenue management system recommends. The next is about predicting customer behavior. The first goal for any price optimization system is to predict what customers will do as you increase or decrease price. This is the classic definition of price sensitivity. And we want to measure that at a detail level. We know blanket price changes usually don't work, so we need a good segmentation strategy. Holiday ruled out customer segmentation due to the Fair Housing Act. So we search for opportunities for product or community segmentation. Predicting customer behavior also means that we need to forecast demand at community and unit type level, or what we call pricing unit level, at some normalized rate. These involve several key procedures such as unconstraining, seasonality, and time series decomposition. Finally, our goal is to optimize rent such that revenue and ultimately profit are maximized. This is also a follow-up process. There's also a follow-up process to generate final rents at the individual unit level by incorporating any additional pricing rules such as amenity pricing, square foot pricing, or rounding. Are residents price sensitive? The answer is absolutely yes. They are very careful with their savings and budgets. You can see a sign of that in this chart, which uses a company-wide scatter plot for net effective rent versus demand. Net effective rent is calculated by removing discounts and incentives considering expected length of stay. There are several observations or challenges here. The first is that the relationship is not strong enough to build best price optimization procedures. The second observation is that the rents are average in a given month. Since there are many different units, averaging rents for deriving sensitivity like averaging apples and oranges. $3,000 might be a great deal for one property, but it might be a very bad deal for another property. We don't see this in this chart, but we also have move-in seasonality. 1,000 move-ins can mean a poor performance in July, but a great performance in November. So we need to normalize rents and derive what we call net effective rent ratio. This is the most important variable in the system, as it is the decision variable for optimization. We use reference rent as an anchor to derive net effective rent ratio. The reference rate is calculated for each rental and is based on existing customer rents and recent net effective rents as of the time of each rental. We also make size adjustments for any size or amenities. When we do this along with seasonal adjustments, we can establish a much stronger relationship between price and demand, as you can see in the chart. Is company-wide sensitivity enough? the answer is obviously no. Deriving company-wide sensitivity measures are not helpful since pricing opportunities are usually hidden within microsegments. So we need to do pricing segmentation. We can only segment by product attributes such as unit type, like studio or one bedroom, or community attributes such as quality, average housing price of that location, like medium age, population over 75. For example, unit type is a good segmentation dimension if you can establish that the price sensitivity of residents interested in studio units are different than those interested in one-bedroom units. Similarly, residents in more expensive neighborhoods might have different price sensitivity than less expensive neighborhoods. So we develop an algorithm that finds the best segmentation scenario and calculated price sensitivities. To derive segments, statistical clustering, decision trees, techniques, or business judgments are most common. However, these are not appropriate alone. All available clustering techniques have a tendency to oversegment since, to our knowledge, there's no clustering technique that can define clusters based on price sensitivity as a discriminator. This is a great opportunity for the OR community here. In our approach, the first step is to derive all potential scenarios from the available variables. We then use them as categorical variables and solve different forms of market response models, or MRMs, which relate pricing variable with expected demand under each segment scenario. Finally, we chose the MRM model and a segment scenario that gives us the best predictions. In this case, we have unit type, market type, average housing price, and the median age as segmentation dimensions. We solve for price sensitivity parameters at each node on this hierarchical tree and use that in our application. We define this segmentation hierarchy once and use it as part of the system. The resegmentation is not executed every time we run the application. This is typically done once initially or yearly, or if any major changes happen, such as acquisition. Once we have good sensitivity estimate for each node in this hierarchical tree, we turn our attention to demand forecasting at a more granular level. Demand forecasting procedure has many components. Just like hotels and airlines, the business is constrained and demand cannot be observed if the community is at full occupancy. So we use a well-known algorithm, projection detruncation, for unconstraining. Seasonality uses zip code clustering. We deseasonalize, detrend, and deprice to execute the time series models. We run smoothing algorithms for both mean and variance and use them to derive range forecasts. You can see a sample range forecast for a pricing unit at the bottom right corner. We formulated the problem as a stochastic nonlinear optimization model which maximizes revenue for a given community. The decision variable is net effective rent ratio. The model has move-in and move-out forecasts, and the price sensitivity as random variables. Solving a two-stage stochastic model is very time-consuming, even for a single community. You have to first generate all demand scenarios and solve for them simultaneously. Instead, we generated a demand scenario, solved the model for that scenario, got the optimum solution, and repeat that process for all demand scenarios, and average the optimum solution at the end. This is also referred as wait and see solution. What we found was that the average of these wait and see solutions was very close to the two-stage stochastic solution. Once we solve the optimization, we have optimum net effective rent ratios, but not actual rents. We still need to dollarize them for each unit. We post-process the optimum net effective rent ratios at the unit type or pricing unit level by propagating down to the individual units using reference rents, size adjustments, amenity pricing, incentive adjustments, and rounding. Now I'm pleased to turn our presentation back to Scott to talk about realized and qualitative impacts of the SLRO.
In August 2014, we rolled out the SLRO to Holiday's 280 senior living communities. And the realized revenues we are seeing effectively confirms the estimated revenues from Prorize. Company-wide revenue for a single resident increased by $34 million in year one and $54 million in year two, summing up to $88 million in additional revenue. As more residents are priced by the SLRO, we are estimating $79 million additional annual revenue growth in year five. When we began our work with Prorize, we wanted to increase revenue and find rents that could keep Holiday communities at 93 to 94% occupancy, and that's exactly what the innovative SLRO solution provides. Looking at the first 40 communities that originally went live, we're seeing revenue increases of nearly 11% and an uptick in occupancy of more than 7%. The 30 of these communities were from a highly competitive region and consisted of Holiday's lowest performing communities at the time. This further confirms the estimated result. As you all know, the RM system is not necessarily about raising rent, but many times lowering rent is optimal. In fact, the initial revenue lift was primarily due to lower rents, resulting in higher occupancy, since unit occupancy was significantly lower when we rolled out the system. But in the later part of the deployments, the ratio shifted towards higher rents as we increased occupancy. After the revenue lift, the next important outcome from the SLRO was the mind shift of our sales force experience. Sales team members moved from discounting incentives to a value-based approach. I want to emphasize that our industry is new to revenue management, and staff turnover usually means new team members bring with them traditional thinking. As a result, they can be confused about the value selling process. Ongoing training is essential, even after many years of experience with data-driven pricing. We consider Prorize a strategic partner in ensuring that estimated benefits are continuously realized and new team members continue to internalize the revenue management discipline. The SLRO system will continue to provide ongoing benefits long into the future. Conditions in the marketplace continually change. New competition continually comes online. Existing competition is constantly changing their pricing. Customer needs are evolving. The SLRO system gives us a more sophisticated way of dynamically changing our pricing to adapt to a continually changing economic environment. Now we will watch a short video from the field about the SLRO system.
So prior to SLRO, we handled setting market rates at the corporate level, and it was done during our budgeting process. So really it was just a function of, this is where we want to get in terms of revenue. This is where our market rates were. What do they need to be now to get us to this, revenue level? So any discounting, anything like that was then handled at the field level. So they spent a lot of time negotiating with customers, and it was a very negative experience for a customer to come in and to immediately have to start haggling for the rent that they were going to be paying. So the field at first, when we started transitioning to everyone being in SLRO, was nervousness. I mean, change is always difficult. It's hard to completely do a 180 from how you're selling and what you're doing. And we created this, value-driven approach to selling versus the haggle and negotiation. So they were a little bit worried having that taken away from them. But once they realized that it would give them all this time to spend on discovery with the residents and to really get a good understanding of what our customer wanted and needed, and not then having to spend all the time haggling and negotiating, and also, keeping track of what that was doing to their bottom line and the time and effort that they had to then spend on that piece of it as well. It took that out of their hands. It really gave them the ability to focus on the customer. For myself, really it was also a complete 180 because we were just being reactive to markets and to changes. So we would set market rates at the beginning of the year. Anytime we did change rates, had to be done on an individual basis. So when you're talking over 280 communities, to make any changes immediate were almost impossible because you had to do each community and each unit on their own. So I mean, it's 30,000 units that you're potentially changing on a regular basis. And when you're doing that manually by community, you can't be as reactive as you would want to be. So it was a very manual process and just not a lot of science behind how we would come to the market rate. So now, I mean, it's just a completely different world that we live in.
Transportability is usually a loosely claimed concept. I'm pleased to tell you that we not only claim the transportability of our solution, we already did it. And we thought that this will interest the OR community. For that, I would like to turn it over to Matthew Maron of CubeSmart, who will discuss how the SLRO solution was adapted to their business.
Thank you, Ahmet. My name is Matthew Marin. I'm Vice President of Business Intelligence at CubeSmart, which is the third largest owner and operator of self-storage facilities in the United States, with approximately $500 million annual revenue, and we operate over 800 self-storage facilities in the U.S. The SLRO system that Ahmet and Scott spoke about has been successfully adapted and transported to the Self-Storage Rent Optimizer, or SSRO, at CubeSmart. As Ahmet mentioned, transportability can be vague in many cases, but this model has been quite successful for us, demonstrating a revenue increase of over 4% in a controlled test. The SSRO had a high hurdle at CubeSmart. We have a team of data scientists at CubeSmart focused on revenue management, and I've been working in revenue management for over 10 years. CubeSmart had a sophisticated and efficient revenue management system already in place when we evaluated Prorize to replace our existing systems. We recognized that our business shared many of the same challenges with the senior living industry. As with the senior living industry, we have meaningful supply constraints operating at over 90% average occupancy. We track over 3,000 local competitors with significant influence on the performance of our individual stores. Our business is highly seasonal, with 39% more rentals in the peak month of May than in the slowest month of November. And just like in the senior living industry, our leases are month to month, meaning we don't know how long our customers will stay or how much availability we will have months into the future. We worked with Prorize to adapt their model to the self-storage industry, including capturing the higher degrees of seasonality and reacting to shifts in local demand and economic conditions. We tested the SSRO in 2016 at 110 stores, holding out a comparable set of 110 stores on our legacy revenue management system to measure against. Here are two examples from that test where the SSRO showed meaningful benefits relative to our legacy decision-making. In case one, at a store in Houston, occupancy had been just above 90%, but had dropped over 3% over the last year, and demand was trending about flat. Heading into peak season at this time, we would have otherwise increased prices very modestly, but the SSRO recommended a 22% price increase. The SSRO accurately forecasted an ensuing acceleration in demand, and as a result of this decision, in comparing against the control, we found that revenue increased an incremental 15.5%. In case two, at a store in Temecula, California, our occupancy was very high at over 96%, up 8% over the prior year, and rentals have been trending quite strong. We would have continued to raise prices at the store aggressively, but the SSRO recommended dropping rates almost 6%, recognizing that we had probably already raised rates too much and demand was likely to begin to drop. Measuring against the control, we found that this decision saved us 23.7% in revenue relative to what would have happened had we followed the legacy system recommendation. We found during the 6-month pilot of the Prorize SSRO, we increased revenue 4.1%, resulting in a first-year revenue lift of $14 million, and estimate that 5-year revenue lift would reach $91 million. Ahmet?
Thank you, Matt. As you can see, we're proud of what Holiday and Prorize have accomplished. We created the first state-of-the-art revenue management system that helps us meet the immense challenges and capitalize on the opportunities of serving ever-growing senior living industry. The SLRO's advanced technical solution is a prime example of the power of operations research. It dramatically changed Holiday's business quantitatively with revenue lift and qualitatively in ways that have truly impacted employees, customers, communities, and shareholders. Beyond Holiday, the solution is now being rolled out across Brookdale Senior Living, the largest publicly traded senior living operator, with approximately $5 billion in annual revenue after observing even higher revenue lift results from their pilot studies. We are also extremely pleased that our solution has been adapted by a totally new industry, self-storage industry, that is observing equally remarkable results. Thank you.